Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic. Today is Tuesday, and that means Build a Deck Tuesday returned. And in our current series, we are building our second Oathbreaker deck on the channel, and the community has decided Oathbreaker number 2 will be built around Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh. Hello and welcome back, fans of MTG Burgeoning. The community has spoken, and they spoke very loudly. The overwhelming choice for Oathbreaker deck number 2 is Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh. So to review, Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh is a planeswalker that enters the battlefield with 7 loyalty counters for a mana value of 7. That's 4 blue, black, and a red. To add 2 loyalty counters, target opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. Until the end of turn, we may cast that card without paying its mana cost. For +1, each opponent exiles 2 cards from their hand. For -4, Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh deals 7 damage to target opponent or creature an opponent controls. And the big bang of -12, exile each non-land permanent your opponents control. So our Oathbreaker for Oathbreaker deck number 2 is Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh. Now, the community is tasked with selecting Nicol Bolas's signature spell, and we have 5 beauties from which to choose. Here they are in no particular order. You let me know in the comment section which spell you would like to see being Nicol Bolas's signature spell. Option number 1 is Liliana's Triumph. An instant from War of the Spark, it costs 1 and a black and reads, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If we control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. This helps the battlefield immensely because it says each opponent sacrifices a creature. And at instant speed for 1 and a black, if we say the turn after we cast Nicol Bolas, we have 8 mana available to us, we can cast Liliana's Triumph once for each opponent to sack a creature, and then we can cast it again. For a total of 6 mana, each opponent will be sacrificing 2 creatures, hopefully leaving Nicol Bolas well out of harm's reach. So that is option number 1 for our signature spell, Liliana's Triumph. Option number 2 is going to be Reigns of Power. 2 and 2 blue, another instant, and this reads, you and target opponent each untap and gain control of all creatures the other controls until end of turn. Those creatures are unaffected by Summoning Sickness. For the purposes of this Grixis control deck, as we're helming it around Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh, we will most likely be very heavy on the control aspect of the game. So we will not have as many creatures at our disposal. Let's try this again. We will not have as many creatures at our disposal as some of the other Oathbreaker decks at the table may. So by keeping Reigns of Power as our potential signature spell, we can quote-unquote borrow their creatures for a turn in order to do combat or sacrifice things to them. So option number 2 is Reigns of Power. Option number 3 is going to be Dark Intimations. This sorcery spell from Ether Revolts costs 2 blue, black, and red, and reads, each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, then discards a card. We return a creature or a planeswalker card from our graveyard to our hand, and then draw a card. And whenever we cast a Bolas Planeswalker spell, we exile Dark Intimation from our graveyard. This last wall of text is not going to be applicable for us if this spell ends up being our signature spell. If the community votes a different way, and this spell ends up in the 58, then it will apply. And whenever we cast a Bolas Planeswalker spell, we exile this spell from our graveyard, and then that Planeswalker enters the battlefield with 1 additional loyalty counter on it. Not a magnificent boost, but enough for it to warrant consideration, particularly as a signature spell, perhaps not so much as, relying on that in the graveyard as one of the 58. All right, next card up is going to be 1 copy of Deliver Unto Evil. 2 and a black sorcery. choose up to 4 target cards in our graveyard. If we control a Bolas Planeswalker, return those cards to our hand. Now, this is where we have to take a moment here to pause to reflect on this text. We can't cast this spell unless we have Nicol Bolas on the battlefield, or a Nicol Bolas. I'm sorry, let me reframe that again. We cannot cast if Deliver Unto Evil is our signature spell. We cannot cast this without Nicol Bolas, our Oathbreaker, being in play. So if the community elects to choose Deliver Unto Evil, then we need to modify some of the text on this card. And what this card will read is tap 2 and a black at sorcery speed, choose 4 cards in our graveyard, return them to our hand. Keep that in mind when you deliberate about which spell to select as our signature spell on this Oathbreaker deck. If not, and this spell ends up in the 58, we otherwise allow an opponent to choose 2 of those cards, and the chosen cards are left in the graveyard, and we put the other 2 into our hand, and then we exile Deliver Unto Evil. Even the exiling part of this spell will not apply if Deliver Unto Evil ends up as our signature spell. That is option number 4 for the community to decide. And our 5th and final option for the MTG Burgeoning Community to select as the signature spell for Oathbreaker deck number 2 is Fact or Fiction. 3 and a blue as an instant. Come on, camera, get in the game. There we go. Reveal the top 5 cards of our library. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. We put 1 pile into our hand and the other into our graveyard. This has the ability to end of turn cast Fact or Fiction for the win. This also has a lot of potential for politics at the table as well, particularly if some other Oathbreaker is running away with the game. We can cast this spell, and then we can hope that our opponent chooses the cards into the pile that we need to either bring that Oathbreaker down or at least slow them down enough for the rest of the table to catch up. And that is option number 5. And there you have it, MTG Burgeoning Community. Leave your choices in the comment section below as to which card you believe would be the best signature spell for Nicol Bolas, God-Pharaoh, and our second Oathbreaker deck on the channel. Option 1, Liliana's Triumph. Option 2, Reigns of Power. Option 3, Dark Intimations. Option 4, Deliver Unto Evil. And our 5th and final option, Fact or Fiction. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.